Welcome to EnterVR, the podcast where we talk about all things virtual reality. I am Chris Miranda, your host, and on today's show I have James McCrae. He's the creator of something very cool that I am looking forward to very much. But I'm going to let James talk a little bit more about it before I reveal too much of what this amazing thing that it is that he's working on. So thank you, James, for coming on the show, first of all.
Thanks very much for offering to, have a conversation with me. That's really cool.
Yeah, I'm quite honored because the thing that you're working on truly looks like a labor of love. But let's get it out of the way. What is it that you're working on?
So, like many, I kickstarted the Oculus Rift. I got one, and I felt kind of guilty just having this thing, enjoying it, trying to get Skyrim and stuff like that working, So I'm like, I should do a project for this. I study graphics in school, so I'll work on this project. So the project that came to mind that I called at the time, and it's kind of evolving in a strange way. I called it a VR internet browser because the idea is that, it would actually read an HTML page in and actually construct that as a three-dimensional, virtual space that you could walk through. And originally, in its sort of earlier form, you go through these HTML pages, and this sort of virtual world would kind of dynamically be generated and grow, and these rooms would kind of propagate outward in different ways. And I just followed the analogy a bit further. The images that are kind of embedded in these HTML tags, they could actually have this sort of geometric placement as like pictures on the wall and so on and so forth. And I kind of just evolved the idea from there. So it's what it is it's kind of growing all the time. Is this kind of answering your questions?
Mm-hmm. Perfectly, actually. And I was actually, in a nutshell, basically, what your project is I will be able to browse the web with my Oculus Rift one day, and it'll be using your software.
That would be great. That or some form of it, or any kind of program or software where my code's in there. That'd be pretty sweet feeling. Yeah.
That is amazing. That is super cool, man. Because I'm of the opinion that I think the Rift and VR in general is going to replace monitors and TV screens in a large part. Not forever or all of them, but for the most of us, I think, VR in the long run will replace monitors. But then the question becomes, well, how will this, how will the interfaces look for things that are just your casual day-to-day web browsing and Microsoft Word and all that stuff? Like, you are at the forefront of this. You are at the front of the line working on these problems. What inspired you in the first place? Like that, this is really cool, man. Because I'm super excited for what you're working on. I feel like I'm talking to, and I'm not trying to blow smoke up your butt, but I feel like I'm talking to the next Bill Gates or something, because this is something that will touch everyone. Like once they have a VR headset, you know what I'm saying? Like it's just so useful,
Right. Well, I got 2 points on that. The first is that I'm in the same biased camp as you. I believe VR to totally be the next, revolutionary medium that, we kind of started with, speech and the written word, kind of like cavemen, doing imagery and, scrawling on walls, and that evolved into things like, radio, telephone, television. So obviously VR is like the next progression, towards this sort of ideal way of using communication and sharing an experience with someone. I mean, that's the purpose of things like storytelling and all that. So that's the one side of it. The other issue, though, it's funny you mentioned Bill Gates and all that people have been long exploring, at least for decades now, the idea of applying different analogies to, computing and, productivity and these sort of processes that we kind of do day to day, with word processors or checking an encyclopedia, whatever the task may be. So, even Microsoft themselves, this is one thing I get scrutinized for. It evokes a memory of a software called Microsoft Bob. Have you ever heard of Microsoft Bob?
Please enlighten me.
Okay, Microsoft Bob is kind of like Microsoft long ago, decades ago, re-envisioned a different way that one might use a computer that kind of maybe was more intuitive or rich than the classic, WIMP metaphor, where you have icons, you click on them kind of thing. So maybe you're in like a barn or an office and, you're clicking things and, they're going for that more of a metaphor, like, I'm in a Word document, but the experience is like I'm writing a letter to someone or things like that. You should check that out. But
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So that's one of the things I get criticized for is like, reinvention of the past. But I think that what I am doing is something different, and it's very it's open ended. It's not even fully clearly defined yet, but it's definitely trying to leverage, what's great about VR and sort of cater towards experiences and things you'd want to do that are very amenable to VR. So people say, like, well, I wouldn't want to be reading text off walls and things like this. But I very much understand that sentiment. I don't find that maybe the most ideal interface for that either. But maybe if you change it and I want to, visualize and see the three-dimensional structure of molecules or proteins or, like they say, do these virtual tourism things, go on a field trip, like an educational field trip, all those things. Those are really ideal situations where VR and maybe the kind of software that I'm working on, will really hit hard kind of thing.
Yeah, no, it's...
Sorry, I'm going on and on.
No,
feel free to interject at any time.
I completely agree. I think you're... So let me see if I can follow this progression, and let me know if I got this right. Essentially, people are so right now people are making all these, and potentially people will be making all these different apps for the casual consumer for virtual reality. Now obviously now that Facebook is in, it's not just for games, right? But you're gonna have your education apps, you're gonna have your tourism apps, just what you said, your therapy apps, your relaxation apps. So just like how right now gaming itself is part of, at least a part of it is going into the cloud. Do you think that one day we will, instead of just downloading apps, we would use a virtual reality web browser to just stream these virtual reality apps / experiences from the cloud? Is that what this could lead to in the long run?
Yeah, leading to it, we've already kind of got that going on now. I don't know if I want to plug the guy, but there's this dude by the name of Lee Nolan. He goes by Qster123 on the forums. And this kind of evolved in a very organic way. He was just like, there's a few, I guess I have like a small cult following of people who are really interested in following the project that I'm aware of anyway. And he was one of these dudes who just, thought it was really cool, and then he kind of started his site. And then I guess he had some PHP skills and some web development skills, so he thought, I could actually integrate an editor in there and get people, I'll host their content on my own site, making almost like what I've been calling a VR GeoCities type of thing. And people could put out their own experiences and things on there. And what I'm kind of seeing is that people are making experiences more and more like, like a game or like an environment that you'd explore, or, whatever the content is. Maybe they want to show off their photographic works or, things like that. One guy has like the Washington Monument drawn to scale within this environment. Another guy's looking at, how could we do storytelling inside this thing? Yeah. So all these different, like you said, not maybe dedicated apps, but yeah, they're all kind of served up by HTTP dynamically to you. You only download like Firebox is the platform, this one client. It's a pretty compact program, and then you just dynamically, all this stuff just kind of streams through to you.
What was your inspiration for this? Sorry, I'm just curious, but go ahead and finish your thought. I was sorry for interjecting.
No, I encourage the interjection. I'm very casual or whatever.
What inspired you? What made you? Where did the light bulb moment come from for you for this?
Right. Well, let's see. So I have a lot of ways I can go on this question. One is that making a sort of a game or some sort of standalone application, you've kind of made that content and then it's fixed. It's kind of, I don't want to say it's done, but it's it's consumable, it's consumed. You kind of run it once, you have your thrill, and then you're kind of finished. So I wanted to do a project that was kind of deeper than that, one that you could return to or had something different to offer. And then the internet, the web, the metaverse, if you will, is this huge breadth of, knowledge, information, data of all kinds. And I thought, a cool project would be to somehow, incorporate or integrate that data, that knowledge. And I don't presume that this idea is original at all. I mean, there have been 3D web viewing interfaces before. This VRML and X3D, which are these were to be these standards for how one might view data and experience the internet in our virtual future, but it never came to be. So I guess my inspiration, I read the sci-fi novels. Palmer Lucky's like, oh, check out this Ready Player One, which is a sick book, fantastic book. So I was all up in that world. Like I was just feeling it, and I was like, yeah, this idea of like collaborative browsing or I'm calling it browsing. But just like a collaborative universe that we can all enter is like the coolest thing. And I thought, well, there's already this network out there of HTTP servers, so there's a way to already leverage the existing technology to kind of push in that direction of making this kind of idealized metaverse thing happen. So it just seemed like a natural sort of progression.
Is there a definition that everyone is going by at this point of what the metaverse is? Like if I go to Silicon Valley VR and then I go to New York VR meetup and I ask people what is the metaverse, will I get two different answers or a bunch of different answers?
Oh yeah. I think you'll definitely. I mean, we have a shared idealism of what that might be. But one of the great things about being a great writer is that you leave much to the imagination. So I think that what we kind of share is the appreciation for the scope and the magnitude of what the metaverse might be. But each person's definition of what it is a bit different. And it's also the kind of thing where it's varied by nature. Like you could be in one part of the metaverse and the rules, if you will, act a certain way, and then elsewhere they're completely different.
Yeah.
So I'm in the camp that you might get a different answer, but the concept's the same.
How would you describe the metaverse to your relative who's not a technologist at the Thanksgiving party? Someone came up to ask you that.
Metaverse. Well, very open-ended. I'll pick something concrete out of it. One of the great potential things that I see for my view of this metaverse, and this is true in the stories of Snow Crash and the like too, is that it is a collaborative experience. You're not just this singular entity in this world, but rather you're maybe in some sort of mall or street-like situation. There's actually like a crowd of people there, and they're all busily doing whatever it is task they're doing. But you kind of have a shared perception of one another. In this potentially infinite world. One of the things that really interests me about this is the idea of these collaborative browsing experiences. So say I'm on the metaverse equivalent of Amazon and I'm looking at some code or some product or something there. And then now another guy pops in and, just a happenstance meeting and he's there too, and I can kind of point at this, hey, you're just some dude guy who walked into this part of the metaverse that I'm in. What do you think of this? What's your motivation for this? You could just, start shooting the breeze with that guy on your opinion of this thing, whatever it is. So this kind of happenstance meeting and that shared context, that reason that you're both there kind of bonds you in a sense. And you might want to, just start up a chat with a random stranger about that. So I think that what it represents is all these little interesting sort of things that can happen. So in a microscopic sense within the greater macrocosm that it is.
I can definitely see the opportunities for big companies, business. The profit potential from the metaverse, I think, is absolutely immeasurable at this point. And for the consumer itself, I think the time saving, the hassle saving potential of the metaverse is not to say, even so the time saving and the hassle saving of having to drive to the mall, that stuff would be amazing. And then also like the stuff that people haven't thought of yet, like honestly, I think the metaverse will be the place where for me, honestly, I look at the metaverse and I think about how right now we live in the 21st century and we are stuck with economic models, market economy, capitalism. We still have the same old arguments we've been having for the last 150 years: communism versus socialism versus capitalism versus anarchy. But what is what are we looking forward to? And I think that in the future, we're looking at at economies that are self-sustaining from the metaverse, where people can actually make a living and be human at the same time. I think we might be able to have our cake and eat it. It doesn't have to be the Matrix. It doesn't have to be, the post-apocalyptic Ready Player One world that that people are envisioning. And I think that you're on the right path. Are you in any way, shape, or form worried of getting in terms, like, what worries you more, getting this successful out there or selling it to people? I think it sells itself, but what's your biggest worry at this point with your project?
Okay, so I'll just pass on all the commentary you made before about the grander political implications of having this. And just
no, let's.
My worries,
you know what? No, let's do that. Yeah. Let me. Yeah. What do you think of my random rambling about the political, economic implications for humanity for the metaverse? First of all,
I'd say that the idea of a dystopic future, juxtaposed by the sort of VR thing we can jack into, makes for great writing. It's great sci-fi writing. I mean, if it was just a utopia, it wouldn't be quite as a compelling read. Mm-hmm. While we'll have VR, and I think that that's great for globalization and the idea that your company can have a global presence. That's very easy to do. With the advent of the internet, we've already got that. You can order things from around the world, right?
Yeah.
The political boundaries. I think these things will largely stay as they are. There'll be dictatorships, communist regimes, capitalist regimes, things like this. I'm not sure how transformative it will be there, but certainly encourages globalization. That's at least for communication, if not more.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah.
But in terms of, let's stay on this tangent, because in terms of, because here's the thing that I see. I think I see the metaverse being a component of a larger scheme, and by what I mean by that is, you have your metaverse in conjunction with the advent of 3D printers, consumer viable 3D printers that are cheap enough and will get here eventually. Mm-hmm. And along with drone technology and machine learning. Like, I think those things, those three things, that trifecta,
you mean like a revolution of industry where now we can basically 3D print our own products and we have no more dependency upon industry, right?
Yeah, essentially.
There was a joke in Big Bang Theory about this where it's like, I believe it was Big Bang Theory, like, now we got these 3D printers, we're masters of our own future. We can create all of our own objects. And they're like, well, wait a second. Who's building the 3D printers for you? Same thing, Just manufacturing 3D printers instead from these other countries, kind of thing.
Have you heard that joke on Facebook? There's this joke going around on Facebook that people are liking and reposting everywhere, but it's essentially, and this, don't worry, this relates to 3D printing.
Sure. Yeah.
But I'm gonna take you on a quick, a bit of a ride.
No worries.
Take any movie. Right, and put the word penis at the end of it, right? So Forrest Gump, Forrest Penis, and it's just like, the Fifth Element, the fifth penis. Like, it's just silly 14-year-old sort of humor. But like, when I think of that, and I'm like, this is where I make weird connections, because I think about 3D printers, and you put 3D printing at the end of any phrase or object or whatever, and all of a sudden I can see the connection between Mars 3D printers. We'll send 3D printers to Mars, and they will replicate, and build the houses and or whatever we need before humans or robots arrive. Cars, 3D printers. You use 3D printers to print out stuff that you need for your car, and not have to go to Kragen or whatever auto parts store. Dog 3D printer, and so on and so forth. And so I see everything, that surrounds us at some point in time could be touched by this, technology. And the metaverse could be the place where we actually shop for those physical objects, or make those objects that we then see in the real world. That's why I feel like it could be so profound. I mean, but then again, I'm not Nostradamus. I can't predict the future. I have no idea what the fuck is going to happen. But still, I think the potential is there. Did I take you too far? I don't know.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
What to say? 3D printing is a pretty cool technology. You know, this sort of fused bead deposition sort of like process where you just apply these little kind of droplets in this order and make various objects. But I have colleagues who've done research on that and how they handle stresses in different directions and things like that. There's a high economic cost though. You know, these materials, at least right now, you know, if you want to buy like cubic inches of this stuff, it's actually not cost effective to make very large models, as it were, at the moment. But I guess that's like technology in general, where things get cheaper over time, right? But yeah.
Well, yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see at what point these two technologies will marry and make babies. So, tell me about yourself, man. What's your background like? Where do you come from? What is to wind up into virtual reality?
Okay, so like my life story bit kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. I'll go way back. Basically, I guess I was like 5 or 6, and I had an uncle who bought me a Nintendo. And seeing Mario jump on the screen when I hit A, you know, the A button, that was just like, that's I think where my mind clicked, where this idea of technology like was the coolest thing ever. And from then on, I was like super interested in games. And as I got older, I loved games, went on to, play Sonic on Sega Genesis and so on, until I made a friend whose older brother kind of introduced me to this concept of programming for the first time. And when I caught sight of that you could actually, enter in computer codes that would actually dictate the behavior of the machine, I kind of saw like the limitless creative potential behind that, this husk or whatever, this shell, this machine, this thing without a soul or whatever, doesn't really do much and doesn't really consist of much, but you can sort of pour your ideas into it. And if you knew how to translate your ideas into codes that this machine can understand, you could make this thing, do anything in your imagination. You were limited by your imagination. I thought that was just super cool. So from then on, I just got really into programming. I tell the story. I was like the kid at recess who was like a loner hiding in the corner with like graph paper, doing like the vector drawings for the characters I had in my games, rather than go and play Pogs with everybody else or whatever the fad of the day was. You know what I mean? So I just stuck with programming. I remember my computer classes. It was funny. The one other guy I was competing with in the computer programming class, we used to like make like Mega Man X clones and Super Metroid clones, right? And he was like, whoa, he figured out how to like rotate the sprite, right? And I would do like a forward lookup for the texture, so I had all these gaps in the pixels. But no, he actually did like the reverse lookup, which was like what they call a UV, parameterization for a texture now, and it looked smooth. And I was like, how did you do that? Oh man. I mean, that guy later went on to do, he went on to like Dragon's Den. I don't know if you know it. Then they call it Shark Tank or something. But He went on this show and he had a whole product he pitched. It's like, whoa, this dude went places. And anyway, but I had that competitive thing with him. We basically got to avoid doing actual work. And then, I went into, I guess computer science seemed like the natural progression. So bang, now I'm in university. Had a fantastic time there. University comes to an end. You want to prolong getting into your real life a little bit longer. So, what's the obvious choice? Well, how can I most stick with this interest of, video games and gaming? Computer graphics. That seems legit, it's academic, but it keeps me, totally grounded in my interests.
Awesome.
So, I rode the computer graphics train all the way up through a couple more degrees. So I'm just graduating now with the, last degree there. And, along the way, this, VR advent came to be, and obviously I'm huge into games. I mean, I had like the NVIDIA 3D Vision, with the active shutter glasses you wear. I try to, I'd play my game with that like a foot from my face, trying to get as immersed as possible. I remember I've had the projector, and I found out rather than actually buying like a dedicated, projector screen, you could just go to Blinds to Go or like a curtain shop and say, yeah, I just want that like roll curtain, the diffused material. You can get that for like $80 rather than like the $500 projector screen someone wants to sell you.
Whoa.
So, I had like Elder Scrolls Oblivion, like 10-foot wide screen on like this basically sort of like a curtain with a diffuse reflection to it, right?
Wow, you're a badass.
Want to play like, yeah. And I mean, I worked in this laboratory too, the DGP Dynamic Graphics Project at U of T. They got tons of cool stuff going on there too, with like gigantic screens and stuff like this. They have holographic stuff where this like card spins and there's like an image projected onto it in time, so it looks like almost like the Star Wars thing when they're communicating to each other. Wow. So I've seen plenty of stuff, and I've always been huge on gaming and games. And when the Oculus Rift came out, I was just like, I love this fucking company. This is the greatest thing. I've always wanted like something like this,
Yeah.
And not only did they make it happen, they executed it like amazingly. I remember like I was like, this is just so cool. This is so cool, right? And I think their Kickstarter came out on the 1st of the month, and I never Kickstarted anything. I'm not big on the internet. I never Reddited. I never did any of this stuff. I have avoided Facebook and all that. I guess I had a minimal internet presence, but I was like, that's like what turned me into like getting into that. Like, I mulled it over for a week, and then I got one, and it was like the best decision, best $300 I ever spent. Like, I love the product. I love the idea behind it. It's just like super amazing hardware to work with. I have nothing but praise. Yeah.
Same. I'm on the same boat as you. What was your first reaction when you first put on the Rift? That first moment.
Oh my god! I'd be lying to you if I didn't say I giggled and laughed so hard I cried a little tear.
Yeah.
I was like staring at like a post in Tuscany. It was like the stupidest. I was on the balcony looking at like the wooden post. And just like, oh my god, this is so good. I just shed a little tear. I swear to God, man. And the foam like absorbed the tear. It was a sweet moment.
What a considerate foam for absorbing that tear for you. That is
probably.
Yeah,
joy.
Are you? So I take it you're extremely excited for DK2 and Consumer Mall.
Yeah. July can't come soon enough, man. Oh, and unlike the mistake I made waiting a week, I was the guy. 8:30 a.m. EST, the equivalent of whatever my time zone. The very moment that it came up, and their system came up with that 1 pixel high orange bar that you could click on to order, I was all over it.
Wow.
I was on it. So I think I'm order number 1 this time. So I was like, orange bar, you look good enough. That's an amazing model. They could sell people who click on orange bars that don't even know what they're clicking on and getting charged 80 times. People still want it that bad. That's a good position to be in.
Yeah, no, for real, man. Because so your order went well and you didn't have any hiccups or anything when you put that?
Yeah, well, like everyone, I think I got charged like for 3, because you had to pay this extra $50 fee or whatever. Mm-hmm. And like at that day, I think I paid like $56, and then they refunded me a couple days later, and I got like $54. But that's just exchange rate woes because I'm in Canada, right? So the Canada to US conversion bit me a bit there. That's okay.
Yeah.
They can have it, man. They deserve it. This thing is awesome. So yeah.
I love your attitude. It's you're so hardcore. I love it, man. This is cool. So
I don't want to turn off your. I don't know, man. I didn't prepare. I'm just speaking, man. So
I like that. No, this is what I look forward to. I just want to speak with people and see what's inside their heads. So let's talk about design. Like you designed this thing from the ground up. How did you know what felt good for VR? Was it a trial and error thing? Did you check out the Oculus manual? What was your process like?
To be honest, it was in the beginning stages, it was just a real hack just to get something going. I think that, probably internally they're looking at my software like, that's just kind of crap in a way, you know what I mean? So I'll just tell a story if you don't mind. So,
please do.
Around the time I got the development kit and I kind of got to work immediately on, Firebox, the original version. Mm-hmm. So, I actually had a couple issues with the documentation. Like, in particular, there was this one multiplication to the projection matrix that causes it to skew. And I actually just assigned sort of the X value in the 4th column directly. So that was like one thing, and then I couldn't get around that. And there was like little minor mathematical issues or little oversights that I made with the equations. And that was partly because I was actually completing my like PhD thesis dissertation, so I wasn't actually spending a pile of time and like, you know, devoted time on it. It was like always on the side.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of hacked, you know, it was a, what can I talk? So also their Linux support wasn't actually like completely there at that time. So what I wanted to do is I really wanted to quickly get out like a program where like the Riff was working on Linux. And there was another guy who, you know, actually took the SDK and he kind of ported the sort of like Windows API specific function calls to use these sort of more generic, you know, objects, you know, relating to like threading and all this stuff. So the combination of that with kind of my graphics programming to, you know, the OpenGL and do the GLSL shader that could invert the distortion from the, you know, caused by these lenses and stuff. So that combination got a Linux app out quick, but then lo and behold, within a month, their SDK supported it too. But, you know, and then once that happened, I actually kind of left the project by the wayside because I was like busy in school doing my thesis. I basically had to wrap up, man. I was like doing a PhD for like 6 years. So it's like, I already had too many projects and distractions on the side. So I was like, I have to put this aside for a while. Yeah. So what I had left behind, to answer your question, long way around it, was this kind of crappily done implementation that was also, I open sourced it because I just, you know, wanted to share it and let people have it and stuff. And then it actually was getting picked up by a few people, which wasn't the greatest thing because it didn't end up, you know, it wasn't actually a solid implementation the way that they wanted the projection and everything, which to this day still is a little bit magical to me in terms of the really finer points of the details. But so that code was being adopted, and I guess that wasn't great. But you know, now like I think since like February or March, I finally like wrapped it up, have my thesis written, done. I actually have some time to devote to this. I'm gonna go through. So I was like gung ho. I'm gonna read this SDK document. I'm gonna take every equation, gonna pump it in, gonna make sure like it's exact, like 8 to 10 hours a day, like just you know, get it right. So now I'd say like my implementation is like pretty perfect, like pretty on the spec, at least for the SDK 0.2.5 goes. Now they're gonna change all that with 0.3 and this time warping and this madness where they're gonna do it on a mesh and the mesh is gonna change. That's craziness, but I hope it'll be interesting to see what goes on there. So anyway, yeah, just more lately, I've kind of held back on doing the open source release. I want to make sure the next, if I do that, will actually be you know, like a solid release for people. But they may look at that code and be like, oh, we could use this in our own projects. It's a good base to go with. You know, just kind of like a Hello World OpenGL, but in the Rift like app. But they're already, Oculus themselves are doing a great job on that. And adding these like stereo util classes and stuff. I'm rambling, man. I apologize.
No, please. I'm in total like I like this. I like the words that come out of your mouth right now. What are the you know, when
why? Because you're just taking all the words I'm saying and then taking the last word and putting penis on the end.
Yeah, essentially. You have figured me out, sir. What is the so when DK2 comes out, and the hardware is going to be significantly different from DK1, and you know, with low persistence plugged in there software, how will that? Yeah. Are you anticipating that will affect your particular app, or will you know? Do you have any insight into?
Oh, definitely. Mm-hmm. There's an implicit gain in everyone's app. I mean, just you know, from the time I tried it, I acknowledged that when you turn your head, there's this very obvious sort of blurring that happens, right? I mean, it's clear and evident. And, you know, some demos try to hide that more maybe by using sort of, you know, darker, less luminous colors in their implementations. But ultimately there's this blur. So the low persistence, I think will be huge in the direction of just improving not just for Firebox, but, you know, kind of all demos are gonna see improvement from that. Same with the positional tracking stuff too. I should also comment on the, like, I don't want to call myself an evangelist, but I've actually shown my Rift and demoed not just Firebox, but, you know, even the other demos, you know, the Titans of Spacious type stuff, mm-hmm. You know, the Rift roller coaster type experiences, all that. So probably, like, without an exaggeration, hundreds of people around it. Hundreds of people put their. It's a good thing I'm no germaphobe because there's been that many faces on my Rift, right? So, But yeah, like hundreds. Like I've taken it to like Autodesk here in Toronto, and then I found out that Nate Mitchell was there just a month or two ago, and I did an internship there. So I was like, damn it, I missed him. It's like missing Pokeroo, you know. So I had that. I've demoed it in my lab like numerous times. I demoed it at like a barbecue for alumni at the university. I'm actually took Firebox and some other modeling software, and I'm going to and from this. There's a high school not too far. And I'm actually demoing with like 50 or so students from there, having them use the Rift to actually see. This was like a design class, and they could actually see their creations at different scales.
Whoa.
So some made like architectural models, and I made them look like, you know, hundreds of meters high. Some were doing like furniture, so you'd model that at scale. So like there's this huge potential for like pre-manufacturing visualization before you commit the costs towards using those materials to create that object, to first, you know, verify your design and get a visual look at your design. And my other modeling software does a lot of like physical simulation to make sure it stands, what's the weight it can take. So like collaborative, like put all that together, you have this like really sick modeling system that lets you like validate your models in a really powerful way. But anyway, to get back to the number of faces on the Rift, many, and to bring it full circle, the low persistence in that technology is really going to help out, because while you get people who give you like responses from this spectrum of this is incredibly awesome down to like this makes me feel really weird, like they're just weirded out because of like it's like very personal, right? And it gets right in them and they've never tried it before. But I'd say almost universally after 5 to 10 minutes for the the VR gins, if you will, the people who are trying it for the first time, there's almost like a sort of universal response where they feel nauseous or not quite right. That I think this low persistence tech, these positional tracking, anything to ease that
definitely
will help a great deal. So that's going to totally help with adoption and help with my demos too, where like people aren't like, I hate you because the rest of today I'm going to feel like this. And I'm like, hey man, sorry, but you don't regret it, do you? It was cool, right? They're like, yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. You just saw the future, man. Before I go on with my next point, I need to ask, there's this word, VR gin. Is this a word now? Is this a thing? So people who haven't experienced virtual reality or the Rift, they are.
I don't know where I read it.
I love that word, by the way. Yeah. It just makes total sense now. VR gin. Oh man, you guys are having fun with this. So what was have you encountered people who are, aren't particularly excited about virtual reality or the Rift? And if so, what are the arguments? What are the arguments from the other side or the skeptics?
So I have this buddy, his name's Brian, but I call him House. I'd call him kind of one of the detractors. But he's also kind of a real guy, so he'll give me his honest opinion of like what he thinks that it needs to really get that mass adoption. So like he actually calls it the headache machine. But partly I blame that on his bad eyesight. Partly I blame that on an occasional marijuana habit that he chooses to pursue before he goes on there. I remember one time I made him try this guy Teddy 0K, the Hydra cover shooter.
Yeah.
And like I kind of left him on his own means, which maybe wasn't a good idea, and he like tried to duck, and he like totally smoked his head on the table, but just like fell over. But he was kind of laughing. But like so he's had
nice
some bad experiences with it. But it's the things like you said that aren't quite there that they need to work. I see the DK one as like the proof of concept for like look for the potential. This isn't the end goal. I mean, if that was the end goal, that might not be ideal for everyone. But the DK one gets the effect, the stereopsis and stuff, and the very high field of view enough that you say if you continue down this road, this is going to be really awesome, right? Mm-hmm. So he kind of takes it at face value. I guess he's less of a dreamer compared to me, where I didn't see the down the line potential. But I have a feeling that even the people who are kind of detractors to the idea of it, they're going to be swayed in time.
Yeah,
as the technology matures. Also, on that subject, so that's one. That's the technology. Number two is the sense of purpose. Like, why am I putting this on my face? Why not, typical Xbox controller on hand, lounge on my couch, stare at a screen type of thing.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, right? Convenience, I guess. Why would I want to strap this on, right? And that, that's a tougher sell. That's one where you've got to appreciate the idea of the immersion, or that you want to like go inside, or you really want more out of your game.
That's an interesting point you bring up, because the whole immersion thing, like, no, because that is something that at this point the technology cannot go around, and it's something that my girlfriend and I, we go back and forth, because she's not sold on virtual reality quite yet, just for that one fact that you have to put a thing over your face and it looks kind of weird, but that's beside the point in my mind, because I feel like it's not necessarily about this face in front of your face, this thing in front of your face. It's what you're seeing through this thing.
Exactly.
But still, I do agree, I do see the a valid point in the fact that this thing in the future, I hope Oculus is able to hire a really good as an industrial designer. I think that's the word, so that they can make this thing look sexy, like sexify.
Yeah, some sort of sexy shell on it. Yeah, it glows the right way and so on.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. So make it look something like like it belongs in a movie of 2035. But aside from that, I don't know if there's a way to get around that. How people are still want to experience things from the old ways of doing, the old paradigm, the TV 10 feet away from you. I don't know how to get around that. I mean,
I think the sell is the quality of the experience. That's going to be the ultimate thing that sways people. Like this guy I was talking about, he's like, we talked about the Firebox, the project, and he's like, this is for me. He's not super thrilled about it right now. I guess it's more for technologist types, but he's like, what would sway this, what would bring this over the edge, is if you had like YouTube working really sick, and I could see like the windows on the sides, and it was like done in a basically like links to the next videos and stuff. But he's like, and they kind of swirl around you don't have to do all the walking around, this stuff just dynamically moves around you. So he's like, if you could get like a really good experience for like 1 or 2 or 3 high tier sites, I guess is the term, then that's going to push a lot of people to want to use it, because it does whatever they were doing before, but in a much better way for them, better being contextual, whatever that is. You take your girlfriend over, maybe she wants to go shopping, look at this and that. If she could actually be in like that store, but the store looks really amazing, and like every product's there for view and can be rotated every which way. That's going to be a lot more powerful than just looking at static images on a 2D arranged site.
Definitely. So, your Amazon of VR, your Facebook of VR, your YouTube of VR, those things I don't think have been nailed down quite yet. And what is the challenge? For example, just sticking with YouTube, how difficult is it for you right now with the current software that you have and the current limitations that you have to help for you to implement a YouTube viewing experience? A seamless YouTube viewing experience with 3D VR at this moment. Is that something that can be pulled off?
At this moment, I can't. I guess the main technology roadblock for me right now is that on YouTube they tend to use Flash for the videos. They have HTML5 as well, which I could probably get going with very little work. But trying to get Flash videos integrated into the current version of Firebox would be sort of a technical challenge at the moment. The guys at Rift Max Theater, they're doing a really good job on seamlessly bringing in the videos and stuff like that. So it's not technically impossible. It's just, I don't have that going yet. I've got basic video support in, but kind of more for non-Adobe Flash formats, like actual video formats. So work in progress type stuff, right?
Yeah, definitely. But still super cool. What is your plans in terms of will this software app be available for Morpheus? Are you looking into that? Will there be is this completely exclusive to Oculus? What's your strategy with this?
Strategy, yeah, right. Right now the focus is on the Oculus Rift right now, kind of PC. I guess with Sony, they'll probably want to have their own particular solution to whatever browser, if they do integrate it into, their PS4 system or beyond. So right now, I'm kind of sticking with open kinds of systems, operating systems where you can, freely install programs. I'm considering, PC is, I mean that in that generic term, like Windows and Linux and stuff. But but yeah, and also sticking with open standards. Like, I think it's a really good choice and something that separates a lot of the Firebox like models of the past. Like, it often gets compared with Second Life, which has a sort of a central service you go through. So you go with these like Linden Labs server, and they handle, the hosting of the content. They break down the world, and you can buy your plot of land on it and stuff. But it's kind of singularly controlled through them. So I think one of the appeals of the Firebox as a project is the openness in the sense that, here's this HTML or HTML like standard that you can use, and I'm trying to incorporate existing technologies as much as possible where it makes sense. Now you can just make your own server. You don't have to talk to anyone, go through anyone. You just need to make it. It's there. And, ideally the program's open source too. And it's kind of this open collaborative, potentially, way of doing things, way of developing the worlds, and also, way of working on the software too. I think I missed the point of your question, but could you just reiterate?
Yeah, no, it's just essentially you're going for now. You're sticking with Oculus, and you answered it. You answered it beautifully. Next question is, okay. What is your in terms of you did mention about open source, but if people want to get it, so as we speak, can people get involved and get into a GitHub and start adding to the code, or how does that work, and how are you managing that?
I've been asked that a few times. I'm actually not going the collaborative source code route at the moment, and the main reason, I guess, it's becoming less of a personal project now, which is what it started as, was just something cool I wanted to do to learn how to program, for the Oculus Rift SDK specifically. But now it's becoming more of a public thing. I may have to, I may look to that in the future, but at the moment, what I really enjoy is, being a small programming team of one. I can literally turn on my heel and if I have a great idea about how I want to add something, like I added some GLSL shaders thing like a day or two ago to do these like trippy animations and stuff, just kind of on a whim. I didn't have to check in with anyone or verify or worry if it's going to break existing this and that, whether it meets other people's expectations. I can just do it. So I really like. I guess it is a sense of control over the project, but it allows me to be really agile in terms of the direction I might want to take with it.
For sure.
So whereas if you're working within a group, even a small group, you've got to kind of discuss amongst yourselves, what's the decision I'm going to make. And so what I'm going for now is super rapid, super do cool ideas kind of development, and I figure there's time for that later. I'll just make this thing, try to make it cool, and then bring on the bigger team, turn it into more of if it's going to become some sort of commercial success or whatever, bring that team in down the road. But right now I'm just trying to, I guess, add value to it, make it interesting as possible to use.
I like your style.
That said, though, I like all the suggestions. I read everything that people say. There's there's Reddit r/Oculus where people are occasionally posting about Firebox, but there's actually now a Firebox subreddit, r/Firebox. So I read that. I try to answer people's questions on there, and I definitely incorporate suggestions. And I take inspiration from the things people are trying to do with it, and then think about what feature can I add to make that better. And I think I have a pretty clear vision of what everyone wants, and that tends to be better video support, add dynamic web pages, whether that's JavaScript or some other means of scripting, the events that can happen. And one of the real original visions and goals was getting it collaborative and multiplayer, but I think I need to nail down the two previous ones before I start thinking about network protocols and ways to handle that communication.
Are you? Thank you for answering my question. What are you thinking about in terms of raising funds? Is this something that you're thinking about in the future? Or you? What is your monetizing strategy, quote unquote?
Yeah. That's a very, very good point. We are the developer community. These are people who. It's naive to believe that, they're all just kind of working on these projects out of the kindness of their heart. And, ideally we'd all love to be, but at the end of the day, you need, a few mouths to feed and stuff like that. So I guess we're all looking for ways that we can kind of monetize on it, right? And some people are pursuing Kickstarter projects and things like that. Right now, I am just basically, I have another project that I'm working on, another position I'm taking that's going to kind of keep me afloat and allow me to kind of continue to work on this, right? Sort of in a sense for free, right? As a hobby. But, in terms of personal monetization potential, it would be great to, be regarded by a larger company. Someone who actually sees the value of the idea would want to invest in me and in the idea and allow me to continue to develop the software and actually make it become like a truly full-time kind of job for me.
Nice. So you're not...
go on. And I guess I should also mention that the sort of satellite methods of monetization is that even if I didn't monetize and this just became open and free, there are other ways to monetize as well, like this guy who's doing the VR hosting, he's hosting these sites for free, right? So he actually is incurring a financial cost, whereas I don't really have a cost per se. Well, I'm still in the hobby stage of it, but he should at least be covering his hosting expenses. So maybe he's looking at ways to do that. Like he could charge for hosting. I mean, there are sites that charge for hosting. He could actually do advertising, within the VR room to cover his hosting costs. So there are different other means of monetization that are like secondary to the program itself.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Yeah.
But what? No, please, no need to apologize. What is your what is your opinion to in terms of venture capital or angel investors or that sort of thing? Are you steering clear from that world for now and just figuring out how to make something really valuable so that a company will acquire / buy you out? Is that what? Or are you still keeping venture capitalists on the map?
I've actually been getting I've gotten some interesting emails over the past, couple of months by people who are angel investor types. Mm-hmm. I've also got interesting emails from people who have interesting positions in the industry right now, like who develop for Internet Explorer, say, who have emailed me personally.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know. So
that's exciting.
But but just even offering sort of like technical advice and stuff like that and saying that they're interested in the project too, like more informal kind of stuff, you know what I mean? No, like big offers or anything like that. But, so I've got a breadth of people who've expressed interest in different ways. The thing with going with the early angel investors is some of them I think will just kind of want to go for the throat in a sense that they'll want to give you some sort of low amount for sort of a high percentage, take of the company, and they'll want to actually then be in control of the future direction of it. So maybe if you actually want to make a cool piece of software that, your code, people are using it, and that's, for me, that would give me like immense satisfaction too. Mm-hmm. They may be less interested in such a goal and just, want to, exactly, kind of like liquidate, whatever it was, and then now it turns into nothing and doesn't grow.
Yeah.
So.
How far are we away from this project being completed? Are we months away? Are we a year away? 2 years away? How much do you plan on putting in there before it's officially out into released as a standalone? This is the thing. It's not a demo. It's the thing.
It's a tricky question to answer. I don't have a final end goal. It's more of like an infinite list of could you add this type requirements, and it's kind of got this open-ended thing going on about it. So basically, I'm gonna spend my time as much as I can, free time, doing as many kind of cool things for it that I can. So if people one day stop, making requests on what they'd like to see or what could be added, or if I feel like my initial vision that I had for the project's fulfilled. Then I guess I'd stop with it, but I don't see that in the short term, anyways. Yeah, I think there's plenty more that I could do, and even when I got that down, it perpetuates, right? I mean, like Chrome or Firefox themselves, right? Like these are ongoing projects, even though they've got the main program down, right?
Yeah,
they're constantly maintained and stuff. So yeah, software's funny that way, right?
Yeah, thank you for answering that question. That it actually opened my eyes to that aspect of developing. It's not like a game where you actually officially release the game and then you patch it up as you go along. But no, this is an ongoing, and then and it's even more exciting to me because I think you're building something huge, could potentially be huge, because the list could never end, or it could, who knows how far that list will go. So that's super exciting for me.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, I started off calling this an internet browser, but even that name might not be completely appropriate for my vision of it. It's almost like a platform that allows people to easily get into creating VR environments, basically, and being able to easily share those with others and put them, connect those experiences to other people in a very easy and sort of streamlined way.
So let's break it down a bit. Let's role play a little bit. Let's say I am we're having this conversation 12 months into the future. I'm your average Joe off the street, and I'm gonna ask you, why should I use Firebox or whatever we're gonna call it in the future, over my Chrome browser right now? What value are you giving me that I can get from your software that I'm not getting from Chrome?
So you mean your 12 months in the future Chrome browser, which is the same paradigm, 2D pages and so on?
Yeah. So how would you convince me, a layman off the street, that this is what you're creating, what VR can offer is way better?
Well, then I guess I'd have to appeal to the particular situations, those use cases that having a 3D browser, if you will, are ideal for.
Porn. Sorry.
Hey, I don't.
I had to say it, man. It's an average man off the street, dude. The porn is gonna be amazing in there. Trust me. Bam, I bought it. All right, like it's over. But no, please, I want to know your answer for real.
Right. Well, to that note, I kind of, maybe that's an assumption of my own. That's not a good one, but I kind of presume that people will assume on their own end, that unsaid, that if they choose to use it in such a way that use case could be there. But aside from that, yeah, at any time, being able to have an appreciation of three-dimensional geometry, and that's very broad in scope. Like I alluded to, molecular and protein visualization, where they have these specific intricate 3D structures that are most appreciable. Being able to actually look around, and inspect, and view them. I see the collaborative browsing as huge. I mean, is it great that you kind of can go on to, let's use the Amazon product example, right? We go and I look at that coat, and there might be comments by people, but, those aren't people that were actually there. It might be a ghost town. They might have been there, a month ago or something like that. Or, you don't know who you're dealing with on the other end. Maybe someone actually pushing that product or something. Whereas being able to actually meet someone in a sort of VR space, and I'm actually thinking of the extension of the technology too. So, you can actually speak with them. Maybe you have gesture with your hands, right? So I'm picturing in 12 months also the input's more rich. It's not just the HMD itself, but you could actually have an exchange, a communication with someone else.
Nice.
That would be a lot more rich than on 2D Chrome browser in the future. I mean, that alludes, I guess, to the idea of Facebook and their acquisition too. People are going to want to socialize in these environments. These places, again, like they allude to Snow Crash, the guy's basement with the video games, or maybe you're on a tower, maybe you're in Paris, you're looking at this restaurant or whatever,
Yeah.
I've had a virtual date or something. I don't know. There's so many potential. There's so many possibilities. I think that's it. Maybe that's not a very good answer, but
it works. I know, and I see it for sure, because I think that people will definitely develop an appreciation for graphics that we don't get right now, since we just see them from 10 feet away on a flat screen. It's not the same. When I look at Mario 64, for example, from a regular TV, I see it, and it's a nice experience, but to feel it from the inside, to be inside Kokiri Forest, for example, the Zelda VR experience that Dark Akuma created, there's something happening visceral inside of me that I can't explain when I'm in there. It's completely different. It's like looking at video games of the past, and then you start playing them, and your memory of what they used to look like back in the day is, they used to look a lot better. But with VR and with Firebox, eventually this will be something that people won't take for granted as much. I think graphic art and creation of 3D worlds, the people who create those 3D worlds and those artists and those designers, I don't think they get enough credit for the amount of work they put out there. I mean, and I think it's because the world isn't up to scale. Like I don't think people will appreciate Skyrim as much viewing it from a flat screen than they would from within. So for that matter, I think that I think graphic artists are going to have a boom in their demand for them, because I think more and more people are going to want more 3D experiences. But
I mean that's a hard. You can't objectively say though, like that's the reason. That's like your kind of subjective. Like I agree with you. I guess I have like a deep need to want to be inside these environments, in these worlds, as close to sort of feeling the situation as possible. That's a huge sell for me. But it's hard to say in an objective sense. What's the extra value that gives you?
Yeah.
Other than to say it's really cool.
At what point are we gonna see ads on your web browser? I mean, is that something that you're thinking ahead of time? Is that something that crossed your mind? Because I mean, the current paradigm is you got Chrome and you got Mozilla. I don't know if Mozilla makes money from ads. Actually, I should double check that. But
I think I read recently they may be switching to that model.
Really?
Actually, as a means of funding. I read that article. Don't quote me for sure on it, but I recall reading that. Yeah.
So what's your take on that?
What's my take on it? I mean, I don't think that advertising is wrong. Mm-hmm. I believe in at least covering the costs of development or maintaining something. I mean, people are providing like services in a sense, right? There's something that they're giving. That's of value to you that you get, right? So, I mean, it's fair that they try to, at least recoup the costs that it took to provide that service to you. That seems very fair to me. But yeah, I'm on that side where, people, if they do good work, they should be rewarded for it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So, when you're young and you're strapped for cash and stuff, you want everything to be free, but like the real world, it won't operate that way. You need to put money behind things to make things happen. Mm-hmm. So the fact that they're turning to that model, I don't know, whatever they were doing in place before that, whether they were just getting just people donating money to the cause or whatever, maybe a cessation of those funds, something's happening there, they have to turn to this, or maybe they're growing as a company. Who knows the reason? I'm not against it. I mean, it all depends on how they execute that advertising. Like if it's like right in your face and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's funny to think about the grander implications. Like people fear this Facebook thing because once they have that, once you have the eye tracking, they know like exactly where you are and what you're looking at, and you looked at it for X seconds, and like they're actually like wired into your like senses, like the level of their knowledge on like how you'll react to the ads that they're like feeding you as a stimulus. Mm-hmm. Like it's if you go really deep on it, it actually is a scary thought for sure.
Yeah, it's fucking creepy.
So I'm playing both sides, right? Like maybe the Mozilla having the graphic in the corner where that's an approved graphic is fine, but yeah, on the other side of the spectrum, I'm not saying all advertising's good. Mm-hmm. You could be horrendous with the amount of, and if you picture the advancement, like you said, eye tracking and so on, how horrendously intrusive that could be.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there's this quoted that we were living in a culture of non-privacy. There's some sort of quotation like this, but I don't believe this at all. I mean, I maybe for your business model, but I respect having my privacy.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to be like.
Yeah. I agree. No, I still keep my toilet in the bathroom. That's that's what the privacy is all about. I think it's the thing that makes us human. It's one of the things that makes us human is the ability that we all can hold that value of who we are, our identity to ourselves. And here's the thing about advertising. It doesn't bother me that you are going to sell me ads. It bothers me that, the terms and conditions change without my knowledge, or you make the fine print hella small and super and use legalese, and I don't understand what the fuck I'm trying to accept, but I'm going to accept it anyway because I want to talk to my family over Skype or over Facebook chat, whatever. It's the thing that the thing that bothers me at the end of the day is the fact that they're going to use, and I mean advertisers and the NSA, they're going to use the data from the aggregate data of everyone looking at products and going around doing the metaverse, being the thing, being human inside the metaverse, and they're going to aggregate it, and they're going to use big data models to analyze and figure out humanity more, and they're going to use it as a tool of social control because Orwell was Sesame Street compared to what they're doing now. And it's just, I don't know, it just feels weird. And it feels like it's not a democracy if you're not asking me if this is okay. And you're not asking me if this is okay. And that's not cool with me. Like, I don't know, it just feels weird, man. I can't get over that. I can't get over the privacy thing. I think this is where I make my stand. I'm not against advertisers. That's the thing. I just want to make sure that it's clear that that you make it super clear to me that, hey, I'm watching what you're looking at so I can sell you better shit. And then you give me the choice. I want the choice. All right. I don't want you to look at what I'm looking at because I'm a perv. And I don't want my girlfriend to find out on my history that I'm looking at, rabbit porn or horses having sex with mules. I don't, but but here's the thing. Yeah, but that's the thing. I mean, I want those things for myself. So how do you know? I mean, as you as a developer, as someone who's creating. Because here's the thing, and I'm sorry for getting ranty. Your app
it's good.
is if there was one app that went hand in hand in my mind with advertisers, I would say is yours. But how will you in the future balance that out, that conflict between creepy and appropriate?
Yeah, exactly. So it's funny you mentioned on the advertising front, I did have one guy email. He was like, could you add the equivalent of iframes to this? So like I can put a Coke can inside my room, and that Coke can will inhabit this like 3D box, but that'll actually report to Coca-Cola.com that you went in that room at that time. And that can, by being there, acts as an advertisement. Could you put that in?
Whoa.
Yeah. So technologically, yeah, it's possible. So, yeah, like, if you think in a virtual world, I mean, because a computer must necessarily control and dictate the rules of, like, kind of who goes where and what and how this happens, it's potential that if you go through a central server for all of this, it's like as big brother as you could possibly get. You'll know who you're talking to every moment, all that, your input, the axis, your head rotation, this level of detail, and like at every sort of timestamp that they would ever want it, right? So I could just like record your entire social history and claim to know everything about you just by the network of people that you ever experienced, and that could all be recorded. Like, just imagine, right? So, but where was I going to go with it? The other side of it. Yeah, in terms of Firebox itself. The nature of it, I guess I'm going with kind of like open and like decentralized kind of way that it works. Like when you hop around HTTP servers on the internet, they're all different machines that you're communicating with. So they may, and I mean, it's turning out not to be like this as other companies. I could talk about that too, right? Mm-hmm. But there's basically like a brotherhood of like, corporations that basically share the cookies that they're depositing on your browser as you go from site to site, or the little Facebook embedded likes. The moment you look at that tracks on Facebook that, they know all the pages that you're going to kind of thing. So, with Firebox though, I think a couple things are that I am keeping it decentralized. You're not forced to go through a main sort of server. There's nothing fundamentally recording you. You only kind of request to who you want to connect with. But secondly, to keep people's, I guess, trust or whatever, keeping like an open source model would probably would do the best, because people could actually verify that the program is, doing all the things that I'm claiming that it does.
Yeah.
So, and like I think these projects, Chrome and Firefox, you can get the code for them kind of thing. So that's important too. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
Well, yeah, just to kind of keep, use open technologies, keep open models, but even then that's not flawless. Like, this open SSL Heartbleed thing that happened, right? Like, I guess a guy contributed a patch that caused it not to do, bounds checking on some buffer, and lo and behold, 64K of data is available to you or whatever, right? But, so there's no perfect safeguards to prevent malicious things from happening, but it's also the nature and fun of it. Like in Snow Crash 2, the guy presents you with this visual virus and like kills the guy on the other end. It's just so stimulating or whatever. So that's kind of sounds fun for me too.
Yeah, it wouldn't be fun if it wasn't crazy. It's definitely, I mean, if we step back a little bit, what are we doing? We're using the internet we are materializing the internet right before our eyes, and we're browsing information that is stored in zeros and ones somewhere. Like, that's crazy to me if you just step back, but it's so fun to see where it's going, what it's doing. It's just
absolutely
it's crazy, but I love it, man.
Yeah, like whether Firebox is a hit or anything else comes out of people, I like love seeing all the things that people are doing on it. Like, I just want to see that progress. And and I guess it reminds me a bit of Palmer Lucky's plight in the beginning, where he's like, I wanted this sick VR HMD, and I looked around and everything was like really pricey or like really crap in terms of the FOV available, so on and so forth. And I kind of did my own little bit looking around, and I was like, is there like 3D VR browsers, and there's stuff in the past never took off. It's like, I just want to maybe make the one that I would want to use,
Nice.
So I went ahead on that. That was part of the motivation behind the project. Yeah.
Very cool.
That I think it's the only one kind of its kind right now. So certainly that's catering to the Oculus Rift device as like sort of a first class citizen or whatever in the terms of that. Yeah. Anyway.
What is your what's your favorite Mega Man game?
Oh, dude, Mega Man! I love Mega Man. I got in on Mega Man 2, so I could say maybe from Maximal Nostalgia 2, but really the game that I maybe liked the best, where I was like, oh yeah, and I was in love with it.
Yeah.
And I had to see anime about it. Maybe it was Mega Man X for the Super Nintendo.
Yes!
Yeah, dude, that was the best.
Dude, alright.
I'd be lying to you right now if I didn't say I had like the MIDI files for all the songs on my computer right now.
Wow. Yeah, I played Mega Man. I think they must have had, because I remember playing it on my Nintendo DS in college, and I was just I remember going to class and being in the back playing Mega Man X, putting that state of California tax money to work. But it was awesome, man. I love Mega Man X. Are we going to see a Mega Man game from Capcom or anyone? Because this is the thing that I've been paying a little bit of attention to it, and there's a lot of controversy because they fired Kenji Inafune. I think that's old news, but what's up with Mega Man these days? Do you know?
I was really big into the Mega Man. When I was like 16, I actually went to Japan and I like bought copies of I think it was like Mega Man X6, and I don't even think you could buy it domestically at the time, but I have like a Japanese copy of like Mega Man X6 for PlayStation.
Nice.
So, but then beyond that, when they went with like the, I don't even know the names of the new ones, but they're the ones where Mega Man looks really, really cutesy and animated. He didn't look like badass like X did.
Yeah.
I kind of stopped there.
Yeah.
With the
I know which ones you're talking about.
I don't know how to date that when it happened, but it's like Mega Man Battle Networks and so on and so forth. This is kind of when I fell out. I followed the Mega Man, like the original series, X series, and I think that's all she wrote there. So
yeah, I gave Battle Networks a shot, and I was like, man, what am I playing here? I just didn't feel right. Mega Man, I gotta tell you, if I had to choose two Mega Man games that I would be stuck on a desert island with, it would be Mega Man X for sure, and Mega Man for the PlayStation, the one that was an actual 3D game. That was a fun Mega Man game. I don't know if you got to try that one.
Oh, yeah. I do know that one. You wander around in hallways and blast and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally different mechanics going on there, but yeah.
Do you envision a Mega Man style game used on the Rift in VR? Do you think that it could be, at least those mechanics of it's like I don't know if I think there's like this, I'm also a fan of like the Metroid series, Super Metroid and so on. They did one for I think N64. It was like a 3D Super Metroid game. Yeah. And
I think even Cymatic Bruce did it on his stream too. But you could actually kind of first person it via some plugin on the emulator or whatever, but you could get the the Rift, the actual perspective, and like you'd actually have our arm cannon, Samus's arm cannon blasting these guys and stuff. And it looked like he was having a blast with it. I never tried it personally, but yeah, I think definitely you could do a cool Mega Man game. And it would actually be pretty sick if you had like some kind of PlayStation Move like controller, Razor Hydro like thing where you could actually like control his arm cannon, charge it up, and
definitely
shoot stuff.
Yeah, and make sure you add that sound effect every time you shoot.
Yeah.
What is did you get to try out the Metroid games during the GameCube era?
No,
oh, man.
I didn't actually stick with Nintendo beyond the N64. I jumped ship, I guess, to PlayStation because I got into Final Fantasy more so, and all the games were coming out over there. So
yeah, Final Fantasy. How many hours did you put into those guys?
Oh, easily, the standard 50 to 80 per, I'd say.
What was your favorite Final Fantasy game?
We're going all over with the questions.
Yeah, man. This is what I do.
Favorite? Oh, man. I'd have to say 7, dude. 7 was the most impactful.
Wow, a classic.
I liked it. Yeah. 7 was probably my favorite one.
Do you go back to it nowadays? Did they make a HD remix? I feel like they must have, didn't they?
Yeah. There have been a couple over the years, actually. Yeah. One which was largely the same, I think, had a higher resolution, but then, I think even more recently they've updated the textures and stuff. Like, Cloud looked like a couple cubes stuck together when you were walking around in the non-battle scenes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, the graphics were really crude, right? So,
yeah, it's hilarious because I remember those games back in the day, and my memories of them back in the day were just, whoa, this is amazing. And then I look at them now, and I'm like, whoa. Caveman made these. Holy crap. It's crazy. It's just our how do you say, our expectations of graphical fidelity have been extremely skewed over the past few years. And then they're only going to get worse, I feel like.
Yeah, well, it was kind of, you had to look around, like, what was on the market at that time, right? So, like, Final Fantasy VII's graphics might not have been great, but they did have these pre-rendered environments that were just sort of 2D images. Mm-hmm. And the 3D that they did have, like, in the battle scenes, looked sharp at the time, right? So it's all relative, right?
What was the last great video game that you got to play?
Last great video game? Let's see. Great video game. I'm big on MMOs. I like MMOs, but they kind of follow the same kind of formula lately, like your Guild Wars 2, the new Final Fantasy MMO. I haven't tried Elder Scrolls Online yet, but I picture it kind of being a real similar kind of experience. Maybe one that I put like tons and tons of time into, I thought, was Skyrim. I thought Skyrim was pretty fantastic. That was an immersive world even without wearing a Rift,
I agree.
That was one that I could get lost in. Really enjoyed, the Bethesda games are really, really awesome. Even Oblivion 2 was like really awesome when I first played it. Huge into those ones.
Yeah, Bethesda seems to be one of those studios that, in my mind, it can't do no wrong at this point. It's just the way their craftsmanship, it's just so good. I put in not too many hours into Skyrim because I was hanging out with a coworker one day and he was telling me how he put in. He was like, "Yeah, 400 hours into Skyrim, man, and I'm still going at it."
That's crazy.
And I'm just like, "Oh, dude, that's."
I have to kill every bear in Skyrim or whatever. What's his motivation still? Like, 400 hours. That's a lot.
He wants to make sure he sees every pixel, every polygon.
Yeah, right.
So, for me, 400 hours, that scared me. I was like, fuck, because it's a good game, and I know myself. I'm gonna get in there, and I want to have a bit of a social life. That's the thing about Skyrim for me, man. I wish, I really, really wish they can make a Skyrim in VR that is social or multiplayer or co-op wise. I want to go around slaying dragons with my grandpa and my little cousins because that's what we do in Battlefield. But I'd like to do it in VR with Skyrim. Is there for you personally? Do you have a personal wish list inside your heart that you keep nice and locked in there that you want of games or experiences that you would love to see for VR that haven't been created yet?
I was one of the guys who was actually like huge on like getting Skyrim to work in the Rift and saying like, I've tried it, it's awesome, and I got it working. And I actually did have some measure of success using the Vireo drivers, you know, meant to be seen 3D and stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, actually kind of doing these little changes in the settings to get the UI to be kind of functional. But I love those games though where, yeah, they kind of, to touch on Bethesda, why their games are great, like they pay such attention to the detail. Like, you know, we could add cooking into the game, but like who's going to care about cooking? Well, maybe someone will. It adds depth to that universe that they cared about, like, oh, let's like make a bread, or, you know, like something that would seem inane normally, but that combination, that collection of all those elements together really enrich the world. And I also love, like, you know, open-ended freedom sandbox style gameplay too. Like the fact that you can, you know, make decisions, or you have like a mischievous smile and you're like, I want to screw with this something right now, you know. So like maybe you just like, you know, shoot a guard in the village or whatever, then run off, just see what you can get away with, just, you know, cause shit, you know, just disrupt things and just see what will happen. How will this game react to what I'm doing? So I love when games have complex systems in place to deal with that kind of dynamic behavior, where it's not really just, you know, very linear, not open. Yeah. That's why I like MMOs, because of the, you know, dynamics with players, multiplayer. But, you know, games like Skyrim hold my interest for a while because you can go really deep with them.
Nice.
They have a really appreciation for that. Yeah.
No, they do. So. They really do, and it's I feel like when our generation gets really old, we will hail these accomplishments, these video game accomplishments, as art. I think they're the Shakespearean novels of our time. Because you know, it's just storytelling has just kept evolving that way.
Yeah, you could picture Skyrim as being like the most awesome novel you ever read.
Yeah, but you
didn't. You experienced it, right?
Exactly, and it's, and you're a participant in it. What more could you want? You know, for me, books are insanely immersive. You know, if you just a good book, you know, if your imagination just goes wild, but I feel like VR and video games, I could take storytelling to a whole new level. I mean, you know, it just liberating your brain from having to do the cognitive processing of doing the imagining, and using that extra space / cognitive processing power for something else, like empathy or decision making or emotions that will arise from these experiences of the future. What if I had a time machine and I said, James, you have a one-way ticket to go 500 years into the future or 500 years into the past, but it's a one-way ticket. You can't come back. Which one would you choose?
Can I stay in the present?
No, the Earth is about to blow up.
Right. Well, if the Earth's about to blow up, probably 500 years in the future ain't the way to go.
Oh, you got me there. Hold on. Okay, all right. There is a viral infection that is killing 99% of the population, and you're the only one. And we gave you a freezer full of eggs that are frozen, ready to be, and you're the Ark. And we're gonna give you the ability to give birth to humans when you go back in the past or in the future. So
is it just singularly like a population of women, and I'll be singularly responsible for, you know, repopulating the race in 500 years in the future, or? Yeah,
let's do that.
Okay, well, that's the obvious choice then. Go that route and have rampant procreation, I guess. So.
But
yeah, you want to keep us probably technologically grounded again, right?
But if you wanted to be a tourist, would you? Let's say you did have the option to come back, would you go be a tourist in the 500 years ago or 500 years away from now?
Well, I probably want to go into the future because of the potential and the growth. I mean, that's seeing it from from the good point of view, that there's not going to be huge civil unrest or, you know, sort of, you know, massive ecological concerns and so forth. I'd go 500 years in the future just to see how man progressed. I mean, assuming that was the case. What happened 500 years ago is already known and finished.
Yeah. That and malaria was probably running rampant. You don't want to catch malaria. So That would suck.
I actually feel guilty. I've thought about this exercise. If I go 500 years in the past and I had to be like singularly responsible for the retelling of the sum of human knowledge that occurred 500 years beyond that point, I'd be like, oh man, I really should have studied like so much subject so much harder. I really can't explain anything to that level of detail. Or it's like, like a computer. Like, how does it work? It's like, oh my god, I don't know. Like a vacuum tube way back when. I don't know. I'm not a computer engineer, So
if you had,
can I say anything? Yeah.
If you had one,
I know that penicillin comes from some fungus. Start screwing with mushrooms. I don't know.
That's a good one. Start screwing with mushrooms. Well, you'll get something out of it. What do you think is so? If you had one sentence to tell the people of the past about the future, what would you say to them?
That's hard, man.
Yeah.
God, it's such hard. Yeah. Because, a lot of it depends on where in the world you are now. Like, growing up in, in North America, you're extremely privileged, but that's not the case around the world, so you wouldn't want to tell everyone that, like, oh, it's awesome. What would you tell people 500 years ago?
I would tell them...
Though I'd say that... I'll hear yours first. That's good. That's good. You go first.
Okay. All right. I would tell the 500 years from ago. I would tell them about today. I would say in one sentence, you have no fucking idea what's gonna happen. That's all, and then bam. Because how could a human being encompass? How could I encompass what's gonna happen in one sentence? I don't know.
You could say something like, the whole world will be mapped out, and anyone anywhere will be able to talk to anyone anywhere else, or something like that.
And they'll be like, burn this man at the stake. He's a heretic.
You mean what would I say 500 years in the past for the purpose of self-preservation, right? So I'm not construed as being a witch.
Well, yeah, that could work too.
All right.
Pull out your iPhone.
You have no fucking idea what's gonna happen.
Oh man.
I might go with, most respectfully, oh dear king or current monarch or leader of the place that I'm in, I humbly request you not guillotine me or whatever looks like's going on. But yeah, I don't know. Is even technology the most important thing you'd want to talk about in terms of advancement 500 years in the future? I might say there's a lot more potential peace and security to be had. And I mean, probably 500 years ago, you had to worry about, yourself at all times of the day and your life expectancy. We're not living to be 80, we're living to be, 30, 40 kind of thing.
That's an interesting...
You could
But that was an interesting point you brought up. That we live in an era of peace. And I agree that there's definitely less people die, less of violence today than there ever has been before in the past. Considering that there's this Syrian civil war and how there's the whole Crimea thing. Everything. I mean, we're still relatively safer and live in relative peace. Is that a factor of our technology? I mean, could I argue that? Because of, for example, the technology of nuclear weapons, we've sort of, come to the conclusion that having wars between great superpowers or nuclear powers would be extremely crazy and completely, counterproductive. Is that technology or is that humanity at this point doing the reasoning?
We're going on, subject's well beyond my expertise here, so I'm sharing opinions only. I guess Cold War type stuff where they've reached nuclear arms and have come to some sort of stalemate where if anyone makes a move, we all die, a la War Games when the computer has that epiphany. This movie, it's like late 80s, I think. It's War Games,
yeah.
But Is it humanity? I mean, I would say even back 500 years ago, everyone probably still had their sense of humanity, right? But it's the choices that you make given the situation that you're in that dictate things. So now we have more abundance and much more freedom where we have an ability to make more humane choices in a sense. You don't need to always make that choice that, promotes your personal life. You have the freedom to, think about the greater good and stuff a little bit more.
Do you think about the singularity much, by the way?
Not as it's portrayed in the media, no.
What do you
think that,
yeah, go
some
ahead.
people predict it happening in 10 to 20 years, and I'm not on board with that. What's this movie that's coming out with Johnny Depp? It's going to be about transcendence.
Yeah.
Singularity, I don't know. I see it more as like a singularity in the sense of individuals coming together and collaborating. On the subject of politics, again, there's cool ideas and movements towards having sort of like open governments where, but there's also there's a lot of issues there in terms of equal representation for individuals and things like this. But singularities in the sense of numerous humans coming together with common goals. But I mean, that's already kind of happening if you look at certain things. It's all very abstract stuff talking about.
Yeah, I realize we are, but that's I 100% agree in terms of your definition of the singularity is exactly mine. I think we are telekinetically connected because I think that just in the same way, singular, I feel like it's not singular as in, the Kurzweilen theory is that it's going to be the point at which machines will be able to replicate other machines smarter than themselves. Don't quote me on that. But what I think it really will mean is the singularity of it's a unison of the human minds that are connected, tethered to the internet. And I think that and it's a process. I think the singularity is a process, and you are part of that process. You are building the singularity because people will connect to this internet where, a Reddit, I think, is an example of a predecessor to the singularity where people come to one mind through the upvote system. And humanity, the collective consciousness of humanity gets expressed through the internet. I think that's what the singularity might mean for now. But then again, what the fuck am I talking about? It's just, who knows?
Yeah, I mean... Yeah, it's kind of people coming together based on sort of ideas or movements or beliefs or whatever the thing is going on in their brain at the time, and communities form, and it's very easy to form them because of this. The internet as this medium to bring people who are like-minded together. To one singular purposes, I doubt it. But obviously there'll be little camps and groups of people who have interest in specific subjects, whatever they may be. You do me a great honor and probably great exaggeration maybe in suggesting I'm working on technology to somehow singularly unify or bring together all people or whatever to some common goal. But yeah, you're more of a dreamer than I am, I think.
Dude, I have not yet met someone who has matched the level of dreaminess that I have. So, and I say that with pride because I'm not scared to dream. I really or to imagine the craziest things that could happen. Because to be frank, what is worse to hold back and not say anything? Because for all I know, I mean, we live in a world where Dennis Rodman will visit North Korea, a world where. It's just some of the things that are happening in reality as we speak are just insane. It's just, is this science fiction? Is this fiction? No, it's happening right now. And so, for me to say that yes, you might be some Johnny Depp will be playing your character one day in a movie. I think that it's crazy. Yes, I agree. But it's not impossible in the grand scheme of things because you never know. You never know. This thing called the internet is just so underestimated. I think people don't really quite capture how important the internet is, and now we're about to materialize the internet right before our eyes, making it more accessible for the common man. Really, I think that in my view. There is going to be a revolutionary change. I'm not scared to say that. I think, but it will take a process and a progress, and you're part of it. So, And it might not be that, as insane. When I say revolutionary, I'm not saying it's like, holy shit, the world's going to flip upside down. It's going to be like what cars did to the horse. Slowly but surely the horse came out to get replaced. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. What's your take on the current paradigm of browsing the internet and just going back to Firebox and all that good stuff? What's your take on the current paradigm of browsing the internet? And I know I'm taking you all over the place, but is there something missing in your opinion yet that you want to make sure? Is there short and skinny? Is there a problem or a pain that you're trying to solve from the old paradigm?
Well, I see the need that a lot of people want to create, three-dimensional VR-like environments of their own. And a lot of people, already know kind of how to work their way around VR in HTML or, just simple sort of scripting-like languages. So there's a really low barrier entry for them to be able to create these environments versus, going to like a dedicated game engine. They have a real very easy way to sort of share things. They don't have to compile code, make it platform dependent. They merely stick it on an HTTP server somewhere and provide someone a link. I mean, that's as easy as you can get in terms of being able to distribute and share these worlds. I see collaborative browsing, but the idea of being in a virtual space and kind of adventuring through it with someone else or as a group is potentially very cool. Leveraging open, existing technologies, kind of empowering people, giving them the ability to create. I think that's something greater that Firebox offers versus any sort of stock Rift demo someone might download. They might experience it, consume it, that they're done. But, Firebox, this project is actually more of a means to create, actually. It actually is open-ended. It's, and maybe that's the same reason games like Minecraft have such great appeal, is because the people themselves use it to build things in their imagination, kind of thing. So it empowers people to build and to create. There are certain experiences that Firebox will be better for than viewing in a 2D browser, just projected onto sort of some rectangular plane. And those are the kinds of experiences where you'll want to feel like you're within the world because of that. Value that you perceive, things this way. And, certainly you can also do three-dimensional visualization projected on a computer screen, but, I think Oculus is right in saying one of the great advantages of the Rift is this sense of scale that we get as a result of this sort of stereopsis going on in our brains, that you can make objects at different scales and actually perceive them at that scale. So, all those little pieces are all wins for their own different reasons. So, but yeah, holistically, I think I'm just doing something else altogether,
Yeah, I like the fact that you are carving out your own path here, into an uncharted market, into an uncharted frontier of technology and humanity. So with that being said, well said. I'm sold on Firebox. So I'll be following you every move you make, everything you say, everything. Wow, that came out weird. Why did I say it that way? But everything you do, I'm gonna.
I know you can sing better than that. It's the pressure of it. I know you can belt it out if you wanted to.
So what is how can people stay in touch, all that good stuff? How can people follow what you're doing? How can people support you, all that good stuff?
All right, so this is probably the appropriate time to discuss the name change.
Ooh.
Right. So since I started as a personal project, I thought Firebox was a pretty kind of hilarious and cool name because it plays on Mozilla's Firefox, right? Mm-hmm. But the idea is that these rooms originally were like these really boxy like shapes, so Firebox, ha ha ha. But if I am becoming more serious with this, putting time into it, and want to start up a website, have a presence for it, develop it. That name's not going to suffice well for sort of trademark related issues. So I've been taking a lot of on the Firebox current Reddit site, I've been taking feedback on suggestions for new names. And, some people have actually suggested going the sort of Greek and Latin like name on the name. Mm-hmm. So I've been thinking about that a lot, looking into, this sort of Roman and Greek mythology and stuff like that. Wanted to pick something appropriate, but that I haven't really seen anywhere before. So I've converged on the name Janus. And so either maybe I'll call the project Janus 3D or Janus VR. So the idea with the name Janus, Janus, is that he's in Roman mythology, not Greek mythology, but the base word is January. So January, the beginning of the year, represents kind of a change going from one year to another, sort of the passage of time. But in particular, if you look at an image of Janus, it's actually this, you can look it up on Wikipedia now, it's like this head, but it's got sort of faces on the front and on the back. And in a sort of immediate way, way a portal kind of peers into two rooms at once from either side you're on. I saw like an immediate analogy there. This idea, and actually this Janus figure, represents, gates, doors, passages, things like that. So it seems super appropriate and very cool. So I think I'm going to go with, Janus VR, Janus 3D. So I'll be having to get that domain and then make that happen kind of thing.
Wow.
Right now it's not available yet, but yeah.
Well, there you go. There's the official announcement. Firebox has now been changed to Janus. Janus either 3D or Janus VR. Stay tuned for what it's gonna come out to be. I love the name. I actually think that it's quite appropriate. You're using this Roman mythological figure and you're putting so much thought into it. I'm looking forward to the day when Janus becomes a verb, like Google it, Janus it, because that's going to be a thing eventually, definitely. But
this naming game is really hard. You got to pick not something too long, complicated to spell, so on and so forth. So I think I struck a good balance on that. Like you can remember Janus versus like Daedalus was another one, which is cool, which is about. He built Icarus's wings, and he's known for making these like 3D mazes and stuff. But Daedalus is longer. It's got that AE in it, harder to spell, so on and so forth. And I don't know. But yeah, one of the fundamental parts of Firebox is this notion of these portals, these doorways to seamlessly connect you. Like it's almost like a tear in space to take you from one place to the next. And it really fits. I think it really fits. So.
And I like it a lot. No, dude, this is.
You
awesome.
are. Yeah, you're the first person I'm really relaying this information to. So
what an honor! I'm truly honored. I really appreciate this, man. Thank you so much. So how again? This is awesome. How can people stay in touch? How can people support and keep? By the way, keep doing what you're doing because again, you are building the metaverse / singularity. But yeah, all the other good stuff. How can people follow you?
I'll go through the list. It's almost like a part-time job just maintaining all this stuff.
Agreed.
So maybe the number one way is I'm active on the Oculus VR development forums in what's currently the Firebox thread. So I'm always posting my updates on there. I have an existing website online, but again, that's going to be subject to change, right? So actually to give you URLs and stuff right there, it's a little sort of precedes that. But I have an email address I can be reached at, mccrae@dgp.toronto.edu, and that's on my academic page. So if you search for James McCrae, you can get the email there. I check Reddit all the time, so I'm James McCrae on there as well. Right now it's our Firebox. We may just very well keep that subreddit, I guess, or I might switch it. I don't know, but whatever happens, if you want to follow it, I should be findable anyway. Cool. At least if I'm doing it right. So, yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. Are you on Twitter by any chance?
No, I'm not. Sorry.
Oh no worries. Cool. Well.
Oh, how about I refer you to another guy on Twitter who actually is really good at covering the updates.
Yeah.
So this guy Lee Nolan again, he actually tweets when I do updates. And I think his Twitter thing is just VR sites as one word.
Yep. I looked them up actually. I actually looked them up on Twitter and I was like, "Hey, are you the one?" I actually asked him for an interview. I was like, "Lee, I promise. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get you confused for James. I'll probably try to get Lee sometime on the podcast. But I asked him "Hey, do you want to come on the podcast? I'd love to talk to you. I love Firebox and what you're doing." He's like, "Oh, I'm not the developer." I'm like, "Oh, that's." Yeah. But that's awesome.
Yeah. So he's doing it right. You're able to find him. So he's better at this stuff than I am. So that's good. He's actually a great dude, man. From what I know about him, my interactions with him, he's casual, but like he's kind of really on the ball. He gives me like updates and suggestions. If something's broken, he'll be like the first guy to tell me it's broken. That's awesome. Very kind of an informal way. We've turned into a bit of a team working on this, and his vision of just like making up all this like VR sites, this sort of, I don't know if you went to it, but like it's like GeoCities in the sense that you go into this room and then there's like you're in kind of like a hotel lobby, and then like the doors are just like everywhere, and they all have their different labels on them and stuff. And he's expanded, so there's gonna be like 26 hotels, and you can fly around. Like it's really cool stuff, and he's just putting it up all the funds and whatever else, the resources to host these things. So if you want to make a Firebox stream, just go to vrsites.com. Yeah, that's probably the main URL I should be plugging, vrsites.com, because he has all the links and everything in there.
Cool.
And he's doing a great job of the web presence stuff. Sorry, Lee, man, I should have said this earlier, but
well, shout out to Lee. Lee, you're doing a great job. So
yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
VR
I love
sites.
what that guy's doing. Yeah.
Thank you. So yeah, and we love the community loves what you guys are both doing. So thank you, James, man. You've been a true scholar and gentleman of virtual reality today, man. And sorry about bringing you along for this weird ride all over the place. Because I was
no, it's cool. I've actually heard a few of your podcasts before. I knew I was in for like something weird. You might drop the word penis at least a few times, so I already knew what I was in for.
You were right.
Cool. Thanks very much for having me.
It was a true pleasure, really. So again, James McCrae, the creator of Janus, tentatively 3D or VR, but again, a true scholar and gentleman. Thanks so much for your time.